Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, Democrat of Virginia and a former CIA officer. So I want to get your reaction to voters being most concerned now about ongoing threats to democracy. Do you connect that to election deniers doing so well in the primaries?
I think overall concerns about the health of our country and our communities has been something that I've long heard about from voters. Worry about the ability of a Congress so divided to govern, worry about election deniers, worry about, certainly in the aftermath of January 6th, worry about a physical attack, a violent attack on our nation's capital. And so this polling information is frankly something that did not come to much of a surprise to me. But where I think that we are seeing real engagement is the fact that the way that we get at rectifying this worry about our democracy is by demonstrating that democracy can work. And yes, there are many threats to democracy. We see it with these extreme candidates who are coming through primaries. Here in Virginia, in my district, I'm running against someone who's defended the January 6th insurrectionists and called the FBI corrupt and referred to them as deep state. So these threats are very, very real. And frankly, they're a major driving force for those of us who want to demonstrate our beautiful American democracy can and does work. And we're doing that by showing that we can govern. We're doing that by investing in roads and bridges with the infrastructure bill last year. We're doing that with the Inflation Reduction Act, lowering the cost of prescription drugs, investing in fighting climate change, all while paying down our deficit. We're doing it by pulling people together for bipartisan gun violence reduction legislation. And the list goes on, supporting our veterans who've been impacted by toxic exposure throughout their history of service, dating back not just to the last 20 years, but before, with those exposed to Agent Orange and those at Camp Lejeune. And so what I endeavor to do every day is say that good governance is how we strengthen our country. It's how we are responsive to our communities, and it's how we deal with the threat on the ground that exists, frankly, across the country in so many races.
Well, how do you feel also, or concerned are you about the spike in threats against federal law enforcement officials, the FBI and others, especially after the Mar-a-Lago surge?
I'm a former federal law enforcement officer. I used to work narcotics and money laundering cases, and I worked many joint cases with FBI throughout that time and other federal agencies and local agencies as well. And the idea that we would have career law enforcement officers who endeavor every single day to protect our communities, do extraordinary counterterrorism work, do extraordinary work to help our communities, working directly with local and state agencies, the fact that they would now be at the center of attacks and frankly, the former president's ire is grotesquely disappointing. The fact that we see candidates and members of Congress calling to defund FBI, calling to defund other types of federal law enforcement, it's atrocious, and it's deeply, deeply concerning. We are a country of law and order, and it is the brave men and women of our law enforcement entities, and in this particular case, our FBI, that are upholding that duty and upholding the law every day.
Now, while Democrats appear to be closing the enthusiasm gap as we approach this midterm, President Biden's approval rating remains stuck in the low 40s, 42% in our poll. Voters still have to deal with inflation. So, what headwinds are you facing? Would you want the president to campaign for you in your district?
Well, and I've previously welcomed the president to our district, frankly, to talk about lowering the cost of prescription drugs, giving Medicare the ability to negotiate the cost of prescription drug pricing, which is now something that the president has signed into law. I think that what we're seeing is the Democratic Party across the country has extraordinary candidates, both incumbents and new candidates running. And we are hyper-focused on the issues that impact our communities. Across the district that I represent, I'm hyper-focused on transportation and infrastructure issues, on agriculture-related issues, and the needs of the cattlemen and the loggers that I represent, the needs of our communities for broadband connectivity, the needs of the seniors I represent to lower the cost of their prescription drugs, and the needs of the veterans and active duty military members to make sure we're keeping our promises to them. And across the country, there's so many candidates who are focused on the issues that matter. They may be federal issues, but they matter locally. And so that's what I'm focused on. And anyone across the country who's headed towards Election Day, I believe, and intending to win is doing the same thing. That's how we'll pull it across the finish line. That's how we've done it in the past. That's how we'll do it again this November.